Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro. Today's guest is Nate Telow. Nate, welcome back to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me again.
For sure. So for all of you that are listening or watching this episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, Nate has been a guest before on the podcast. Shortly after he turned pro back in 2021, he came on and we kind of did the normal, typical BTM podcast episode where we got into Nate's story and got all the full history of Nate and bodybuilding life. So if you want to kind of get a little bit more in depth in terms of Nate's story, you can scroll quite a ways back and you can watch or listen to that episode. But today, Nate is getting ready to make his pro debut at the New York Pro here in about 4 weeks. So we're going to do a recap on 2022, talk about his new gym hub, and then we'll get into the New York Pro prep. So Nate, I kind of want to take a couple steps back before we kind of talk about the next 4 weeks in terms of the pro debut at the New York Pro. Now, why don't you remind us, where did you turn pro? What division did you turn pro in? And then just talk a little bit about what your life kind of entailed in 2022. I know you opened Gym Hub. Last time we talked, Gym Hub wasn't even open yet. So just talk a little bit about what life's been like for you after you turned pro back in 2021.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I turned pro at the Universe Show in 2021 in bodybuilding. I won the overall in the Masters 35 and up and the Masters 40 and up. Some great guys in there, Andrew Barry being one who turned pro at a later show and is a very well-respected coach. And then, yeah, since then, man, Gym Hub, that's been the last year and a half. And why I hadn't even thought about competing, because man, that was a lot of work in a big project. And for me, I'm not good at multitasking and giving my all to multiple things. I always feel like if I'm doing 3 things, I'm not doing any of those things to the best of my ability. So when the opportunity came to open up Gym Hub, it was not even a question that I wasn't going to compete during that time, because something's got to suffer. Either I give my all to Gym Hub and I do my best in a prep, considering the circumstances, and say, well, I could have been better if, and I'm not going to do that. So, and I certainly wasn't going to go all in on a pro show and half-ass opening up a gym where that first year is crucial. So I've been all in on the gym. How that came about, to sum it up, is, I've been a trainer for 20 years. And, after a while, most trainers start out working in a corporate gym and they help get you clients. You train a variety of people, you learn the role. But part of that relationship is you're using the gym space, you're getting clients from the gym's members. The gym typically takes like 70% of what a client would pay. If a client's paying $100, that trainer makes like $30 of that. And so I was part of that corporate world for a very long time, going all the way to like the top of the totem pole, running 70 gyms. And so a goal for me as a trainer, for people like my coach, Jose Raymond, there's a lot of great people around this area who are fantastic trainers with no place to train. So my first goal in doing Gym Hub was to provide a place for great trainers to have great equipment and run their own business and train their clients, like a private gym for top-notch trainers. So I set out looking for a space for that. And man, in downtown Boston I had no idea, renting commercial space and trying to put gyms in these historic buildings. Downtown Boston obviously is very, very historic. You've got buildings up from the 1800s, and right outside my door is, it's nonstop tours of Paul Revere went down this street, and this is the church he went to. And, we're in that area of Boston. So it's a hard sell to a landlord to say, hey, we want to put a gym in your building. It doesn't fit with, and we're also sort of in the financial district, so the thought of somebody deadlifting and dropping dumbbells, doesn't pair well with law offices and private equity firms and all that. So we finally found a spot. And as I started picking out equipment for it, the dream of any bodybuilder is to have your gym with your favorite equipment. And fortunately, that's what I was able to do. Jose Raymond and I flew around the country to the best gyms and just trained. Like we flew down to Redcon 1 in Boca for 3 days and trained there 3 days in a row, and Carbon Culture in Tennessee, and of course Bev Francis Powerhouse and Montanari Brothers Powerhouse, and just made a list of the pieces that he and I said, like, these are incredible. The wow pieces, when you get on it, you say, man, I wish my gym had this. And then I went on the hunt to buy all those pieces. Some of them were new. I could call up Panada or Atlantis and buy a piece. Some of them were 30 years old and very collectible. So I have to go through brokers. And so that came together where I handpicked every last machine from the best pieces I could try around the country, bought all that stuff, put it in the gym. And in this process, as I was posting of, we just got an old school Nebula leg press, which is the Ronnie Coleman leg press, where he's pressing 2,600 pounds, or flex leverage chest press and incline chest press, and these pieces that are incredible. Everybody in the community was like, bro, you got to let me train there. Right? And we were just going to be a private for trainers only. So we said, well, we'll open it up. We won't have memberships, but we'll do day passes, because I don't want to sell a membership and have somebody come here 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have it get too crowded for these trainers. Because in my trainer model, we're in our own lane. All around us in downtown are commercial gyms, Equinox, Boston Sports Club, Planet Fitness, with millions of dollars to spend on advertising, on beautiful finishes for their clubs. We're the little guy. It's me and my hand-picked equipment, some of which are 30 years old. Our whole thing was, let's stay on our lane. Let's do something that hasn't been done, that I think there's a need for it with these trainers. But what we also found was there was a real need for this kind of gym. And that was never in my business plan of we're going to be a gym and we're going to get lots of people coming. It was just get trainers, just get more and more trainers, and they get clients, and we're just a training studio. But once we opened, one of the coolest things was we'd been open for a month, and the Boston Pro came to town, the one and only one and done Boston Pro. And I don't know if you followed that show at all, but it was the week after the Arnold Classic last year, and you had everybody from the Arnold. So it was brilliant timing to have that show, because the whole Arnold crew just flies from Ohio to Boston. And so we had Urs, who won for Classic Physique. You had Urishna here. Maureen Blanquisco had won the Boston Pro that year. We had Isa Pacini, as well as the Boston Pro paid Jay Cutler to come, Victor Martinez, Brandon Curry, and they were all in my gym. So we'd been open a month, really just trying to be a training studio. And we had 40 pros in this gym, and a who's who of pros. Also with them, from Ryan Terry, Andre Ferguson, Urs, they all had their videographers with them. And now they're making content in my gym, and it's going on the YouTube channel. Isa Pacini had a videographer. And now my gym's out there of, where's this place in Boston? All of these pros are, and it, while that would have been like a dream of mine, open up a Bev Francis like powerhouse bodybuilding gym, it seems like a really bad business idea, And so that wasn't the business idea, but it landed on our lap. And now we get all the competitors, because we're Boston sort of central in Massachusetts, and you have north of Boston, all those towns, south of Boston, all those towns west, and they all have some cool gyms. But if somebody south of Boston wants to train with somebody north of Boston because they're Instagram friends, they're like, let's meet at Gym Hub, or somebody north and west. So we've become this spot where everybody's like, let's go to Gym Hub for leg day, and friends get together and train and post about it. And we've got equipment, no one else in the state has. And it's just blossomed, man. Jay Cutler now has become a really good friend to me, to the gym. Every time he's in town, he's here for multiple days, training, filming YouTube videos, talking about the gym on his podcasts. and it's just one thing after the other. We can get into it later. We have Maureen Blanquisco, Miss Olympia Bikini, is coming up here next week to do one-on-one bikini posing out of the gym, which is huge for bikini girls in this area. Jay Cutler will be here next week. He has the Jay Cutler Classic in Boston. So I'm living the dream, man, of, this bodybuilding gym that, fell on my lap, or I should say the situation allowed me to have what my dream would be, but I would be too scared to go for it. Meanwhile, that training business is thriving. We have lots of amazing trainers using the gym, but it's also really grown as if you're remotely into bodybuilding in this state, you got to be training here.
Cool, man. Now, you said a good friend of this podcast, Nate Spear, was just there this morning. Was he training or just there posing, or what was he there for?
Yeah, Nate came in to train legs with a buddy. He had a buddy there, and we chatted for a while. I didn't get a chance to take a look at him. I was training clients all morning. I saw him in the gym covered up, even with whatever he's wearing, a 3XL shirt. He looks huge right now. He was in the gym maybe 3 weeks ago while Jose and I were here, and Jose had him pose, and he looked great. But he was at the NPC main show last weekend as the guest poser. And man, did he look incredible in those pics that I saw. And we chatted for a little bit this morning while I was training clients. He feels great. He's happy with where he's at. He's made leaps and bounds improvements from the Boston Pro that he did last year. Nate trains really hard. He lives this lifestyle. He's a bodybuilder through and through. And every year he gets remarkably better, and that's been the case from last year to this year, from what I've seen. And we just chatted for a minute of, this year, at least so far, of who we know is entering. You've got Carlos Thomas Jr., who's incredible. Carlos is a buddy and has one of the best frames and physiques and structures I've ever seen. And I've never seen somebody with that much muscle. You have there's the guy on Instagram, goes by Beef Stew is his Instagram profile. Stuart
Sutherland. Yeah.
Yes, he looks incredible. But the cool thing for Nate is, I think if Nate gets a look, like, he's got a ton of muscle, he's very balanced, and he's going to be in shape, and for a guy like that isn't as well known as, an Akeem Williams, some of the bigger names that might historically do the show, if Nate gets a comparison, he can do really well.
Yeah. And
if there aren't any big names jumping in, if it's just Carlos, if it's Stuart and Nate's going to get a look, like, it's there isn't the politics of, you got to pay your dues and we'll put you in the second call out. You're not ready for the first call out. Like, I'll be shocked at this point if Nate doesn't make the first call out, at least given the lineup that we know. And I'm so happy for him. He's such a good guy.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm excited to see how Nate Spear is going to do. Now, in regards to your training, now I've listened to you and Jose, like, on your guys' podcast. I've paid attention to some of the content you guys put out. So I know that because of the Gym Hub opening up, and you mentioned it earlier, you kind of had to put your training and kind of the full-time bodybuilding, so to speak, kind of on the back burner. So was that hard for you, Nate? Or did you know that, hey, I'm gonna pull back on the training a little bit? I know you were still training hard, but you kind of said that you were training a little bit differently than you would be with Jose and stuff like that, right? So was that hard for you to kind of put the training on the back burner, or were you so involved in Gym Hub and excited about that and kind of caught up in that you didn't really miss it that much? Talk about that for a couple minutes.
Yeah, so I think that, I love training. I love training hard. What was the challenge for me was the interruptions and things that I would need to handle. As an example, I might be in the middle of a workout hitting back on my own, and somebody would walk into the gym saying, hey, I'm a trainer. I heard about this place. I want to find out more about bringing my clients here. Well, that's a really lucrative prospect for me, And so I wasn't going to be like, come back in a few hours. I'm doing training back right now, and stop. I'd talk to the person for 20 minutes and try to, And so that was more of it. It wasn't so much I don't feel like training hard, I'm gonna, put training on the back burner. It was it was just me in this gym, and I had so much responsibility to, when you open up something new, there's a critical period of, here's our expenses, here's our rent, here's, and you got to get over that hump so you're not losing money for too long. And so that was more of the priority of, uh you know meals would suffer. I'd sit down and be like, all right, it's been 4 hours, I need to eat. 2 bites in, somebody comes in, and looks around kind of confused, and I'm here to find out more about the gym, and I go, oh, all right, here we go, let me give you a tour. So it was a lot of those interruptions that came about from being this new business, this, after the Boston Pro, where locally we kind of went viral on social media, right? With a, what's this gym I've never heard of, but everybody's training there. And so people started walking in, from trainers to competitors to just people looking for a local gym. And it was always at the most inconvenient time for me, when I'm eating, when I'm training, and, so that was most of it, where I would say, okay, like, I'll do the best I can getting in my food and getting in my training, but I have to make sure this gym gets off the ground. And I have to, this gym is me. You come in here, I'm here 7 days a week. But I also take a lot of pride in, I can shape the culture and the energy of this place, and the goal is, I'll give you an example. I had one guy I laid into this morning multiple times. If he casually used this, he has an Equinox membership, and he just comes here once a week to change the scenery. Not really a serious lifter. And he came into the gym this morning and was just on Bluetooth on the phone. So he's training, he's just having a conversation, not training hard, and I gave him like 5 minutes, because I'm like, all right, maybe he's ending this. He just came into the gym, and it was, 10 minutes in, he's just having a casual conversation, catching up with people. So I had to tell him to get off the phone, because, in any gym, you just don't want distractions. You want to come in and just be focused on what you're doing. And if anything, the only distraction is looking left or right and seeing Jose crushing somebody in a workout, or seeing somebody push hard, and hopefully you get motivation from that. Not somebody being lazy and talking on the phone. And as soon as I lay into him for that, 15 minutes later, I look, and he's left 2 different chest machines with all the plates on them. Right. And so I have to go up again. I'm like, bro, this is not going to fly here. Like, the people that train here have respect for what this place is, for this equipment, for the people around them. Like, this is your one shot, so I say that in, like, if I didn't do that, and I had 5 or 6 of those guys coming in every day throughout the day, now the place sucks. Now there's weights on everything you want to use. There's people sitting around just on the phone, tying up machines. And so by me being here and being very proactive of, this is going to be the culture of this place, either people roll with it or it's not for you, but as we've done that, man, the culture is incredible. Everybody's told me what it's meant for them to come here, where normally they might go to a corporate gym or a Planet Fitness and feel out of place for wanting to train hard. And that doesn't mean training like an idiot, grunting and throwing weights. It just means going in and saying, I'm going to hit failure. I'm going to push myself to the limit. And people have said, not only am I able to do that here, and I love the equipment, but I've made so many friends around here. And now I have training partners, because we all are aligned in what we're here for. Our motto is Gym Hub, everybody's here to train. Like, whatever that means for you, but you're in here to train, so as we've created that culture, it's just a better and better place for a niche group, right? Like, this is a very niche gym of the type of person that might walk into an Equinox and be like, is anybody here to train? This is social hour. So you come in here, and again, we don't have idiots. We don't have people using chalk and throwing stuff around. And I've been very adamant from day one that this would be a gym women would feel comfortable with. in our videos and our marketing, we lead with women. So important. While we have Maureen coming next week, is this very female friendly, if you've been to any of these more bodybuilding gyms, these Gold's gyms from back in the day, they always had like the women's only room, right? It was like, women don't feel comfortable in the main gym with the dumbbells, so we'll give them their own little room with dumbbells and a squat rack. And I always hated that. It was like, shame on the management and for having the wrong culture that women don't even feel comfortable in the gym. You got to put them in a private room because guys are going to hit on them, stare at them, whatever. So I've been very, very adamant about that. We have a massive college population, a lot of women who are now turning into first-time competitors. All these girls getting ready to do their first bikini show, young kids getting ready to do their first classic physique, bodybuilding show. It's become a spot where maybe you're a college kid and you're putting on muscle for the first time, and you see an Urs, a Bumstead, any of these people, but you wouldn't even know how to get into that. You like the look, but you're like, how would I even? Well, when you come to Gym Hub, there's like 10 people here at any given time prepping for a show. Whether it's me prepping for a pro show, you've got Jose here 5-6 days a week. Jay Cutler's here every few months for multiple days at a time, to like people. We have a whole bunch of people Jose's prepping right now for Universe. He has 4 people going to Universe. All 4 of them have a great shot at getting their pro card. So we've just created this culture of, if this is something you thought of doing, you're going to get the bug if you come to this gym, because you're going to see so many people around you just doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've got to ask you, Nate, the gentleman that you had to get on a couple times earlier today, how did he respond to that?
We'll see. I got a couple dirty looks, so you could tell. I was talking to my girlfriend who had gone to this gym that he has a main membership at, and she was telling me the culture of that gym is the trainers get paid floor hours to pick up after members. That it's very much common practice of somebody will get that for me, which is crazy to me, right? And these poor trainers, get paid $12 an hour to just walk around and take plates off of the machine. I would last 10 minutes in that job before I would snap at somebody, So, when I told him, he kind of looked at me of like, excuse me, what are you saying to me? Yeah. And I said, listen, this isn't Equinox. Everybody here takes their weights off their machines when they're done. This is, I've watched you the last few times you've come here and you've done it each time. So let's just be clear about this right now, that, this is a very strong rule of this gym. But I think you can handle that. Yeah. And he just sort of looked at me for a minute, I kind of waited like, do you have something to say? No? Okay. Have a good workout. So we'll see what happens next time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I love how you guys are kind of creating and holding that culture, because it's kind of anti what gyms are nowadays, right? So, okay, now let's transition a little bit then, Nate, into your pro debut. Okay, so Jose Raymond's your coach. When did you guys kind of start thinking about doing a pro show? And then why did you guys decide on the New York Pro?
So Jose wanted me to compete right after turning pro in 2021. He was like, jump into Tampa, but I knew Gym Hub was sort of in the works around that point. I was looking for locations and I wanted to flip the switch to that. So he knew last year wasn't going to be feasible for me. We sort of talked about it. But I knew I wanted to compete this year. We thought earlier the better, just because I was eager to compete. So, the landscape has kind of changed around. Typically, the Indie Pro would be first. That always started the year in terms of after the Arnold. So we had kind of thrown that out, and then the Indie Pro's done. So that's not an option. Then I was looking at 2 shows, New York Pro and Puerto Rico Pro. And, Puerto Rico felt a little bit better to make a debut at, because it's a smaller show than New York, right? New York has all the killers generally. Whereas Puerto Rico, not everybody wants to make that trek and spend the money. And so it's a smaller pool of people. You may have 10 guys competing in the 212 versus 20. So we went back and forth, and I talked to a few people, Jay Cutler being one of them. And there were 2 points where everybody said, do New York Pro. Jose being one, Jay being one. One is when you're an East Coast guy, especially now that we don't have the Boston Pro, the New York Pro is our hometown show for the whole East Coast, right? That's our one pro show. And Steve Weinberger runs all the NPC shows throughout the whole East Coast, through New England, New York, New Jersey. And there's just sort of a, support your home team, support your guy. You do Steve's show if you're from this area. That was what Jay had said. The other thing was, when I spoke to a couple people, even outside of bodybuilding, mentors of mine who were just successful businessmen, it was like, hey, I've got this show that's going to have a crazy lineup historically, and a smaller show that I might have a better chance at to make the top 5. What do you think? And the overwhelming answer from those people is, dive into the deep end. You'll always be better for taking on the bigger challenge and having this overwhelming, like, what am I doing? I'm jumping into this huge show, but it's going to bring out the best in you, rather than saying, oh, I'm doing this smaller show and I should be good enough to make the top 5. I'm going to the New York Pro saying, one, I hope I can make the top 10. And it's a victory for me to make that top 5, which I do believe I can do. And Jose is, telling me constantly, like, you can be in that top 5, that first call out. So that was part of it, right? It's the hometown show. It's Steve Weinberger who puts on all the local shows. And it's really the biggest show, historically, after the Olympia and the Arnold, the New York Pro, over a longer period of time has been that biggest show that anyone can enter into. So it was like, you know what? And part of it too. So this coming Monday, April 24th, I turn 42. And so there's a part of me, when I was trying to get a pro card, and I didn't even know if that was possible, that sort of said, well, I'll get the pro card and then I'll move on to other goals in my life. And then, of course, that didn't happen. I'm competitive. I want to see, I love this sport so much. And now, certainly I want to be competitive. I want to finish in the top 5 at a pro show. I want to win a pro show. If I can make improvements and be good enough, I'll see how I stack up at this show. But I also, most importantly, is I want to have great experiences and great memories, of maybe I've got a few years of doing this, at the top of my game. But I also want to be, I'm going to remember the New York Pro and being backstage with a who's who, and the best photographers in the world are there. And you've got the videographers and, a big production. In the scheme of things, 10 years from now, those memories will be with me, doing a big show. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I want to be able to take it in and do the biggest things possible.
Awesome. Okay. Now, how many weeks out did you guys start prep? And up to this point, you're about 4 weeks out. How has prep gone, maybe compared to other preps that you've been in, Nate?
Yeah, we started probably about 16 weeks out, which is like cutting out all the junk, throwing in a little bit of cardio, and for me, training with Jose on a regular basis, which I was sort of sporadic with when I had time, when our schedules aligned. It then turned to, before I book any clients in my day, I schedule with Jose. And my training is my priority, and everything else fits around that, flipping the switch, and I'm all in. So that was about 16 weeks out. And I got to tell you, man, right? The universe, what I would have told you when I did universe, and that was during pandemic times, and, things had slowed down. I had a lot of free time on my hands to just train and do cardio and live the life of a bodybuilder. Right now, I don't have the time, but what I'll tell you is this is my best and easiest prep so far. Part of it is the gym that I built. I have my dream gym with access to the best of equipment. I have Jose by my side in this gym 5-6 days a week. I have a great meal sponsor, Hard Body Meals, that provides my food, so I have no excuses. They deliver my food twice a week fresh, and so I have access to the best quality food here, with a fridge and a microwave in the gym. My motivation is an all-time high given the environment of all of the competitors that come through here, both amateur and pro. There's been times I've been training with Jose and Jay Cutler's in the gym saying, is that all you guys are doing? I train way harder than that one, so it's such a dream environment. It's almost like I picked up and moved out to Kuwait to train at Oxygen Gym, of the perfect environment that's here, of the people that I'm around. The food is here, the equipment's here, and so it's been, I don't want to use the word easy because that's a bad label. But it's been a prep with no problems. You always wait for the curveballs to throw up. Something comes out of the blue, of personal problems, work problems, or whatever, that adds a lot of drama to your life when you're, higher in stress from a prep. And thank God, nothing there. Everyone around me is healthy and happy, and training's going well. And so I'm in a really good spot to by far bring my best, significantly better than how I looked at Universe a year and a half ago.
Now, a couple of things, cardio up to this point, where are you guys kind of at with cardio? And then also, Nate, after last year and not training with Jose as much, and not being maybe as focused as you could be on your training because of the interruptions and the business, do you feel like maybe not going balls to the wall, 24/7, 365 last year has set your body up to respond better and in the long run be better this year? So how much current cardio, and then that latter question I just asked?
Yeah. So, man, I've up until just this week, I was doing 20 to 25 minutes of cardio, nothing. Like, wake up, and we're talking like walk on a treadmill, incline of 4, speed of 3, and something that you kind of start with prep to just get your mind in the place of, like, I'm going to do easy cardio just to get in the routine of doing cardio, and then I'll make it hard. And I didn't have to do any more than that. Excuse me. I started with that, saying, okay, I'm going to have to ramp up the intensity. I'm going to have to ramp up the time. But I didn't. I started prep at like 235, 236. And with that cardio routine, which is nothing, I got down to 217 and like almost ready. And to a point where Jose at a couple points was like, we need to up your food. Like, you're probably a little too lean for 7-8 weeks out. So I have carbs every meal, which I never would do at this point. At this point, we'd be pulling out carbs from at least a couple meals. And so we've been a little bit of ahead. And then, so Jose just kind of held, like, we don't want to drop any more weight. Let's feed you a little bit more, hold 217, 218. And then just this week, we went up to a whopping 45 minutes for the first time. So we started that 2 days ago. Today's my third day of doing it, and I'm already down 2 pounds. Right. So that's one thing, Jose and I have such a great relationship, is he knows my body. We're not going in blind with a coach kind of cookie cutter, at this point in prep, we should be doing this. Is Jose knows that within like 2 weeks of dropping carbs and pushing cardio, I can go from close to stage ready. And the main thing for me is I need to be as round and full as possible on stage. So if we push it too soon and I lose a little bit of muscle or a lot of fullness, that won't be my best look. So it's sort of this game of get me in striking distance of most of the body fat off. Right now, it's just a little bit of my lower back and glutes. Other than that, most of the stuff is there. And still keep me full. And then at the last minute, we push. It's sort of how my body's worked. But the great thing is Jose and I have been working together for 5 years. He sees me every day. we trained yesterday. We actually filmed a back workout that'll be going up on his YouTube channel next week, 24th, 25th, 26th, somewhere around there. And people will get to see how we train. It's a brutal back workout. And we did some posing at the end, so people will see. That was at 4.5 weeks out yesterday. And and then in terms of taking not time off, but say training at 80% versus 100%, I really think it's helped me. As I'm another couple years older than from when I turned pro, a combination of that, and I recently found a local woman who does like deep tissue massage and walks on you. She's got a railing on the wall, and it's just heels. And I've never felt better. I've been going to her every other week, and I never, anytime I went to local body workers, it just felt like a waste. It was like a relaxing massage, but I'm like, that didn't fix anything. And I did have a friend I've always worked with, a woman named Karen Garrett. Her business is Fixed by KG. We grew up together. We were trainers together in the early 2000s at a Bally Total Fitness. She moved out to Vegas, and she's the body worker for everybody. Like before the Olympia, she's working on, probably 3/4 of the people. And just works with, so she's also coming out to my gym next week to work on everybody before the Jay Cutler Classic. We get her out here. It's huge for the competitors, but she doesn't come around often. So it's like maybe I see her once every 3 months. But this massage therapist that I found recently, it's a brutal deep tissue massage. I'm cringing the whole time, but it has completely changed how my body feels. It's amazing when your traps and your back isn't tight, how relaxed you are, and now your shoulders move better and you can press better. Things aren't impinged. So between not going balls to the walls all last year to the level that I am now in prep, and this body worker, this is the best my body has ever felt, ever, ever, at least since I've been bodybuilding the last 5-6 years. So I'm in a good place there.
Cool, man. Okay, what's your personal goal for the New York Pro then? What do you want to accomplish there, Nate?
All right, so a goal and then a sub goal. So first goal absolutely is to make the top 10. Top 10 gets to do a posing routine at night, which I have a ton of friends and family coming down for this show. So that would mean a lot to me to be able to do that. Get the video, get the photos of doing the routine. And I know I can do that. I know we're going to bring a physique that'll make the top 10. And my big goal within that is top 5. I think, there's some heavy hitters who I have tremendous respect for, Kareth Bajo being one, who has a fantastic physique, and he certainly has to be the favorite coming into this show. You have the Korean guy, I think the Mass 212, who was second place last year. So you've got some veterans, people who have done very, very well, people who've been to the Olympia. But I think I can bring something really, really good that can be in that top 5. Jose was basically saying, like, so I'm tall for 212. I'm 5'8". These guys tend to be 5'5", 5'6". So you're going to have some, shorter, stockier guys that will have more muscle and be thicker than me. But I can play my own game of, I have to be one of the most peeled guys on stage. Sometimes these short, stocky guys come in too big, too full. There's not as much detail as they should have. So I have to be lights out peeled. Jose is working with me regularly on my posing. So every shot, we're getting detail every which way. The glutes have to be firing, and the quads, and every last little thing. I think it can become a game of, while I might not be the absolute biggest guy up there, I can show the most detail. I can be peeled and have a look that people say, wow, like that guy can hang with these people. So that's the goal, is having my presentation, my color, my posing be perfect. And I think there's certainly some poses I can take out a lot of guys with. So top 5 is the goal.
Cool, man. Any other plans to compete this year, or is it kind of dependent upon what happens at the New York Pro, Nate?
So the initial goal was going to be New York and then Puerto Rico. I talked about one or the other. I said, let me do both. And I just found out this past week they canceled the Puerto Rico Pro. So where we're at now is, 100% in for New York. And I think based on placing, if I make the top 5, top 6 in that range, the Toronto Pro is 2 weeks later. And so if I'm in a place where it makes sense financially to spend the money, to take time off from work, to go to Toronto, if I can be competitive, I'll go to Toronto, which is 2 weeks later. So we'll see. Right now it'll depend on how I can compare at New York, hopefully favorably in that top 5. If that's the case, then I'll be in shape. I'll go right on to Toronto. But I'm just thinking about New York for now. We'll decide that based on how New York goes.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Nate, on the overall state of the 212 division?
So I think it's at a transition point right now. You have Sean Clarita is incredible. Pound for pound is one of the best bodybuilders out there. And, the Arnold showed that with him going head to head with Big Ramy, over 100 pounds. Ramy had over 100 pounds on him. So Sean Clarita is incredible. With the guys that have moved up, Derek Lunsford, obviously coming to mind first. And, before that, Hottie, it shows these guys are incredible. They're some of the best bodybuilders out there. Clarita's really incredible. And you've got a lot of other guys, Angel Calderon did very well this past Olympia. Even I left out of Vegas with him, Oleg. I think he's from, is it Croatia? He's from overseas. I think he was like 5th place, around there, 5th or 6th at the Olympia. I forget. He's incredible. Obviously, you have Keon. When Keon puts it together, and nails the conditioning, I don't think anybody beats him. But I think there's a little bit of a transition of, we had obviously the previous generation of Flex and Jose retire, and those were the guys we all looked up to. And now this next group, certainly led by Sean Clarita, are killing it. Lunsford just moved on, but it's kind of wide open, for some new blood. So I'm hoping we'll see some of that new blood. I'm hoping to be that new blood at the New York Pro. One comparison that I love and would love to do what he did is, because we're the same height, is Nathan Epler. Did very well when he was in the 212, right? Certainly by no means was the thickest, biggest guy out there, but his shape, his structure, his polish, you think of him in that front lat spread. And, while he might have been the smallest guy in that call out, he destroyed everybody on the front lat spread, right? So that's what I'm looking to do is bring a physique like that, like Nathan Epler did. We're the same height. That's certainly a physique I look up to for something I would like to accomplish in the 212. But I think it's ripe right now for a new crop of guys. There was the battle for years of Flex, David Henry, Jose, Ashkenani. All of these guys were kind of battling each other. And Ashkenani's still around. Obviously, David Henry's still around, but selectively kind of picking shows, doing more Masters stuff, I believe. So it's wide open for some of these new guys, Kareth being one, Kareth, Keon, Oleg, Angel. There's no definitive, this is going to be the guy to challenge Sean. Right now it's sort of Sean is the Ronnie Coleman of the 212. But I do think in the next year or two, there'll be 2 or 3 guys that are going to be right there battling them for that title.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes, but some of your thoughts on what you saw at the Arnold in terms of the open men's, and then what do you think about some of these up and comers in the open men's? Because it seems like we're kind of having that turnover of the new generation in the open men's bodybuilding as well, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, man, the Arnold was exciting. I was down there, saw the show in person, and one of the most fun shows I've been to, because you really didn't know which way it was going to go. And any three of those guys could have won it, and I was happy for them. It's very rare that that happens. Either you're rooting for your guy or there's a clear-cut winner, and just three different physiques. I love Nick Walker. If he had won it, I would have been thrilled for him. I had seen a lot of photos leading up to the show of Andrew Jacked because of Jose's connection with Chris Aceto. And, Chris Aceto was down at my gym a week or two before the Arnold, and I got to see videos and pics. And so I felt a little bit more invested in Andrew Jack's prep, having seen, the weekly pics. And I absolutely love his physique. It's absolutely crazy. So he's somebody I'm really, really excited about. There's Samson is incredible. The really cool thing with that crop of guys in the open, and certainly Lunsford is probably my favorite physique, in that group. Real quick story. I was at the Olympia sitting with Jose and Fuad, and we were like 2 rows behind the judges, like dead center at prejudging. And Lunsford came out, and I wish I would have had my phone out to record Jose and Fuad. There was just like a total shock and awe, jaw down, looking at each other saying, oh my God, when he went up for a front double and pulled a vacuum, and you saw how tiny his waist was and how much bigger he was. So it's really, really cool this year of, going into the Olympia, of newer crop of guys, meaning Nick Walker, Derek Lunsford, now Andrew Jacked, Samson. It's not a lock for Hadi at all, and any one of, even let's say it comes down to Hadi and Derek again, there becomes is Samson third? Can Andrew Jacked get third? Does someone get by Nick Walker? And even in the new guys coming up, man, I'm excited to see Carlos Thomas Jr. If he can bring crazy conditioning, I don't know who beats that guy.
Yeah.
I've seen Carlos since before he was pro. You can't go anywhere at a bodybuilding show without running into Carlos's dad, just taking out pics and show he's so proud of his son. And I sat next to Carlos the whole Arnold. Carlos had the seat right next to me, and we were watching the Arnold together with his dad. And so I'm really excited for him. I mean, that's a once in a lifetime physique of how crazy, if that guy can show up conditioned, it's like a William Bonac level of thickness, maybe even thicker. I mean, he's absolutely insane. You've got guys like Nate Spear that we talked about that, Nate can be first call outs at New York Pro. Man, if Carlos is off, Nate can win the New York Pro. And I have no doubt, seeing what Nate did in the last year, that Nate in 2 years is going to be first call outs in a lot of pro shows. So he's really promising. So it's a really cool time. Andrew Jacked is the one that comes to mind, because talk about coming from out of nowhere. I mean, he got his pro card, a year ago at the Arnold? I think he turned pro a year ago at the Arnold Amateur, did maybe 2 pro shows before the Olympia, right, with George Farah, does the Olympia, and then now with Chris Aceto, and then having the training with Chris Psycho Lewis. And even from what I've heard, is prior to working with Chris Psycho Lewis, is he wasn't training that hard. And he had barely been training like a bodybuilder for a couple years. So what does that guy look like with a full off season, of the eating, of the training? If he looks like he looks now, training like a bodybuilder for a couple years and not even training hard. So it's a really exciting time for, a changing of the guard of these new faces coming up. As much as I love the veterans of Brandon Curry and Big Ramy, and Brandon's always been amazing. I love his physique. it's an exciting time for the sport to have these guys that have so much potential, and you can see them improving every show.
Yeah. Do you know, Nate, kind of the story of why Andrew Jacked went with Chris Aceto? I think he had a couple coaches this last year, and obviously he won 2 pro shows and went to the Olympia. Do you know that story or not?
So what I've heard is it has more to do with Andrew approaching Chris Psycho Lewis about training him. Okay. And I don't know how that meeting happened, but I think the meeting was, of like kind of what he did for Sean Roden. And certainly Andrew Jacked has very Sean Roden-like physique, right? Just massive, but just beautiful and symmetrical at the same time. So I believe he approached Chris Psycho Lewis about working with him. Okay. And Chris Psycho Lewis is the one that has a great relationship with Chris Aceto, right? They Sean Roden together, and that's his guy that he knows. I can beat this guy into the ground in the gym, and Chris is going to feed him appropriately. Or Chris will call me and say, based on what I'm seeing in his pictures, you need to bring the training down to 70% for a few days. Or, they have a really good communication. What I get with Jose in one package, right? Training me and seeing how I'm doing in the gym and adjusting food and rest days accordingly. Those guys are a great team together. So that's what I remember hearing of what happened was Chris Psycho. The conversation started with Chris Psycho Lewis. Chris said, if you're going to work with me, I need you to work with Chris Aceto because we work really well together.
Okay, cool. Little insight there. Okay, Nate, I think we've kind of touched on a lot of topics here, man. We're gonna wrap it up. Why don't you give any final thoughts or any final words that you have for us? Give us your Instagram. If people are in the Boston area, they want to check out Gym Hub, how can they do that? And then I'll do a quick outro and I'll let you go. So platform's yours, Nate.
You got it. Yeah, thank you so much. So you can find me on Instagram at Nate Telow, NateTelow. Gym Hub is at Gym Hub Boston on Instagram. That's probably the best way is if you're remotely in the Boston area, find us on Instagram, come on in. We do easy day passes, $15 to work out. So no hassle. Love to have people in. We're starting to get a lot more and more people traveling saying, I'm from Texas. I heard about your gym, or I saw it on Jay Cutler's YouTube channel. I was here traveling. I wanted to come in. So we love those people. After that, Jose's YouTube channel, the Boston Mass, we'll have a workout video dropping next week, between probably the 24th and the 26th or so. And we'll put out a few more documenting this prep, our workouts, posing, insight from Jose into why we're doing what we're doing for this prep. The video we recorded last week, or a couple days ago rather, had a lot of great insight from Jose, why he picked the movements he picked, what our specific goals are, things I need to work on for posing. So you get a lot of behind the scenes from a very knowledgeable person in Jose. So Jose's YouTube channel, keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that's about it. Really appreciate you and congratulate you on your continued success on this. You've had a lot of great guests on. I've enjoyed watching the show from time to time and the guests that you have on. So I love what you're doing for the sport.
For sure. You're very welcome, Nate. And thank you so much for coming on again. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. If you guys have not done so already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button in regards to Behind the Muscle podcast on YouTube. And then please take this episode with Nate, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Nate, tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. Catch you guys later.